Now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he got it down.
How strong is he?
Hello and welcome to the Pick and Go podcast. I know what you're all thinking. No, I am not Patrick Jones. Patrick is again missing in action after the All Blacks loss over the weekend. But I'm here, Richard Leddy, to see us through this week. And I'm joined by pretty sort of some wise heads of the game, you could say. Fisky, Matthew Fisk, how are you?
Some wise heads, maybe some big heads, some old heads. I'll give you the tip. But yeah, I'm good, mate. It's been an interesting season. We've got a lot to talk about today, and thanks for having me.
Good to be here. And not just Fisky, other wise head, old head, whatever head you want to call him, Paul Mawadi. Beautiful to see you. How are you, mate?
Yeah, big head. I heard a rumour that Patrick Jones is actually technical advisor to the All Blacks coaching team. So
that would explain something.
Yeah. I think if people had known that a wee bit sooner, I think they may have changed their betting patterns.
Having a rough week for him, I'm sure. Well, we might as well get straight on to that. What happened on the weekend? All Blacks vs France at Stade de France. And once again, the All Blacks went down to France in the grey jerseys with Wayne Barnes refereeing. Fisky, what went wrong for the All Blacks?
Oh, where do I start? They're just totally and utterly outplayed. And even that sort of 20-minute period at the start of the second half when they got themselves back in the game, it was some brilliant footy just to get close. But I think France well and truly deserved the win. Second week in a row, the All Blacks have been humbled. Wasn't unlucky, wasn't dodgy calls. They were utterly and thoroughly humbled. And yeah, I'm like a lot of Kiwis, just kind of scratching my head. If I knew the answer, and I think everyone's got an opinion, I'll put it down to one or two things. But number one is just the physicality of the game, the forwards. I think the All Blacks are just falling behind there. We're great at throwing the ball around and great at playing against touch footy, but when it gets really physical, and we saw it with the Springboks in Queensland and we saw it with Ireland last week in particular, but yeah, you just can't go with them, and there's just no plan B in attack when they're sort of faced with these problems. They can't hold them to the ball. So I've said enough. I want to hear Paul's thoughts and yours, but yeah, like I say, not even close personally.
Yeah, I completely agree. They just outmuscled, outplayed. Paul, did you have anything to sort of add on, along those lines?
I'm certainly in agreement there with Fisky. I think you'll find the bulk of Test match rugby, those games are usually won in the forwards and in particular in the tight five. And to be fair to the All Blacks, we have been totally outplayed in the last two matches in that area. I think Ireland 2 weeks ago and the French last weekend showed if you muscle up against the All Blacks and play a nice tight sort of game, keep the ball away from the All Blacks, then the All Blacks make mistakes, and if you can capitalise on those mistakes, turn those opportunities into points, then you'll go a long way to defeating the All Blacks. And the French and the Irish had very, very well thought out game plans. I thought the Irish defence 2 weeks ago was superb. I thought the French defence, once again, although not quite as up in the face as the Irish were, was still very physical. And I agree, we got out muscled, and you just don't see. Well, I haven't seen that in a long, long time from an All Black side. So they seem to struggle when game plan A doesn't go according to how it's been going in practice. They struggle. They don't seem to have anything else to turn that round. So there's quite a bit of work to be done there.
I can exclusively reveal that it was Richard that put together the International World 15 for 2021, and it was shared on social media, and I agree with it thoroughly. I thought it was very telling. There are only two All Blacks in the starting side, and you know what? I think that's pretty accurate.
It's
Yeah, I mean, I did, passed on to Fisky, got a few points from him. But yeah, the only two All Blacks that made it were Ali Sevilla and Will Jordan. And I mean, Sevilla just he just, gives his all. He, obviously there was a yellow card in the weekend, which sort of was probably detriment to his game. But apart from that, he was one of the probably two best All Blacks on the park. And then, Will Jordan had a probably quieter game in the weekend, but I mean, he's just been an absolute breakthrough star this year. But yeah, I mean, even when I was doing it, I felt weird putting only two All Blacks in that team, but sort of had to be done, didn't it? Was there any positives to take? Any players that sort of stood out? Anything you want to anyone you want to shout out, or was it all pretty doom and gloom for you guys?
Oh, look, I think it's good to call Artie out. I think he's in every team side in the world if you could pick him. And yeah, he got sent to the bin, but he never gives up. I thought that the midfield, Ioane and is it Quinn Tapua? They were solid. Geordie didn't have his best game, but no, not a lot to call out. You know what I start thinking when I go through the side, and it's just in the key positions. They're the lock forwards and maybe your 10 option with Bodie, and then when you look at Dane Coles and Aaron Smith, you're kind of starting to look a bit old. And with the World Cup in 2 years, they're only going to be that little bit older. Whereas the French, Entomac, is only going to improve in the next 2 years. And we see people like the Freddie Stewart, England fullback, and a few others. Like, there's some good players coming up, and the All Blacks sort of have a lot of their best players on their way back down. And Retallick really hasn't hit the form he showed 2-3 years ago, and still a great player, but that's worrying me. It really is. What do you think, Paul?
This is sort of shades of 1991, where we had the best team in the world in 1987, and we pretty much had the same team in 1991, and there are a number of those players who were on the way down. They had passed their use-by date. Their best years were behind them, and we're almost heading down that same sort of track this time. And certainly, if we hold on to this squad for the World Cup in 2023, it will definitely look like a repeat of 1991. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to blood a few more players, or a few more younger players, put their hand up during Super Rugby, and then get rewarded with a black jersey. I know there were quite a few black jerseys handed out this season, but there's still. I agree with Fisky. They're an aging side at the moment, and they don't quite have that balance right. And I don't think they quite have a game plan to suit the styles of rugby and the styles of defenses that they're going to be coming up against in the World Cup. So still, it's still a couple of years away, but there's a lot of work to be done before that. And I don't know. I don't know whether we've got the right group together to get that work done.
So, Rissy, I'll put it to you, mate. You're the host, but I'll play host for a minute. Is Ian Foster the right guy to A, unlock the deficiencies in our opponents, and B, bring the right players through to give this squad a bit more youth and exuberance? Is he the right guy?
Well, if you look at the record so far, you'd probably say not so much. The team that is they're starting sort of 15, 23 at the moment. I was just going to say most of the debutants we've seen this season have just come in those games against your Tongas and your Italys and your United States. So, I mean, we'll watch the sort of Bunnings NPC this year, and saw some of that young blood coming through. So the talent's there. It's probably just about getting them there. It's interesting to see Scott Robertson asked about it, and he sort of kept his opinions to himself this week. Obviously, there was been a lot of talk about whether he would have been the right man for the job. I think if you're asking that question, Fisky, Scott Robinson probably would be better at sort of bringing a fresh, new sort of game plan in. But obviously, New Zealand rugby, that's not what they wanted. They obviously wanted that. So they wanted to keep it with that sort of tried and tested. And it's probably, it's not doesn't seem to be sort of at its best. That said, the All
You
Blacks
should get into politics. Like, I've asked you, is he the right guy? I'll tell you, I'm giving him an F. I think it's a fail. Paul, what's your answer, mate?
Yeah, well, there's a vacancy in the National Party at the moment, Rishi. If you're keen, I agree with Fisky there. You spent about a minute and a half running around saying nothing. I'll give you the tip. No, I don't think Foster is the right man for the job, and I think Robertson should be in there, but I don't see a change being made.
No, what happened now?
I don't think it'll happen now.
I'll see it out. I'll see it the final 2 years and see what happens. I mean, it's not. The season's not a complete fail for me. That's that. It was 12-3 record. They still retained the Bledisloe Cup comfortably, and they still won the Rugby Championship. So they smashed some point scoring records. So they can kind of throw it around and have some fun. But yeah, it's just when the opposition really comes at them, they just really need to address that, don't they?
Yeah, it's a real concern. It's a real concern.
So, Fisky, you said, is it a fail for the year from you?
Oh, for the year, no. Like I think there's players like Geordie Barrett have really stood up and world class. He was unlucky not to make that starting 15, and there's a couple of players I've really enjoyed seeing develop. But it's not a fail, but it's a pass. That's all it is this year. Because really, who have we beaten? Australia on countless occasions, a horrendous Tongan and Italy and USA team, and Fiji actually tested us for about 60 minutes in those matches. So, and South Africa got the better of us in Brisbane, got humbled in those two big games towards the end of the year. Not a lot to get really excited about. Sort of beating Australia and Argentina in that sort of style of game that all of us can do in their sleep. Yeah, pass. That's it. Pass.
And you, Paul?
Yeah, 5 out of 10. That's about it.
C's get degrees, eh?
Yeah, it's just the big games that we wanted to win to finish off the season. We weren't in them. I think the score lines actually flattered us, to be fair, in those last two games. So although we've still got some trophies in the cabinet, I still think it was a disappointing season and just a C, 5 out of 10, 50%.
50%, fair enough. Yeah, I'll probably give them a C+, just a little bit above, but yeah, still plenty of room for improvement. We'll move on from the All Blacks because it's getting me a bit sad. But there was plenty of other internationals on, some quality games. That Sunday morning was one of the great sort of mornings of rugby. It all went the Northern Hemisphere's way. But yeah, so England and South Africa, the sort of World Cup final rematch. It was a real sort of back and forth battle. And then in South Africa sort of probably thought they sort of had it with 5-10 minutes to go, but England just kept in it. And then there was obviously that penalty at the end. Fisky, what did you think of that? The grand final, the sort of Rugby World Cup final rematch. Did it live up to the reputation?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it'd be very dour. I think the total points were sitting at 40 or 41 before kickoff, and they flew over, scoring 53. So, England got the better of them. I just like the way South Africa just took it between the teeth, the bit between the teeth when they fell behind by a big score and just said, we're going to get them here. And they did. They just methodically worked back into the game and just almost thought they were going to get there, and then just slipped up very late there, when the game was there for the taking. I don't think they'll lose much sleep over it. I thought South Africa's tour was really good. Clinical, again, actually just overpowered Scotland, clinical against Wales, and yeah, just sort of started too slowly against England. And this is on the back of knocking off the All Blacks. So I think they'll be very comfortable how they're heading towards the 2023 World Cup. I really enjoyed that match, and yeah, enjoyed a couple of others actually too.
Yeah, there's plenty to look forward to. Plenty to enjoy. Also, that Wales Australia game with that questionable refereeing.
What a
Paul,
joke!
Did you see any of that? Have any thoughts on the refereeing there?
Go Fisky, go!
Oh, look, I'll never go in a bat for the Wallabies. I can't stand them, but some of the decisions there, and we won't even talk about the head clash that was a send-off. Okay, I could maybe cop a yellow card, but the knockdown, the Curly Bill knockdown, probably a yellow card, debatable. But when the other guy did the exact same thing after Bill, you think, well, he set a precedent here. Not only didn't he send him off, he's given a try. It defied physics how it wasn't a knock-on. And it's actually relevant where the ball goes. If you knock the ball down, it's a knockdown. It's a penalty and a yellow card. Bizarre. Truly bizarre. And
even the Welsh player sort of stopped and kind of looked and then
Look back.
yeah, it was like, oh, the whistle isn't going yet.
Hear the whistle.
Don't I?
to give the bloke credit, even he shrugged his shoulders when they watered. He just had a bit of a grin going, how good's that? But look, Dave Rennie, he's going to suffer from what a lot of Wallabies coaches experience. Not just they have to work so hard to get in these games because they just don't have the cattle. And then when they do really put it together for a match, which they had pretty much all tour, they finally put it together and get done by the ref. So uncharacteristically blew up. I think he's got the backing of everyone in Australia and mostly around the world. So, yeah, I feel for Rennie. Like, it kind of all went haywire when they had the cock-ups in Japan with players not wanting to go and sort of giving them different indications where they're going to go to Europe, and they kind of had nothing after that. And we were chatting off air about them being $11 for the World Cup. I can't see any improvement between now and 2023. There's no young players coming through, and they've just gone and lost 3 matches on a tour in Europe for the first time in history. So I don't know how they get anywhere close to these top 4 or 5 sides.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I do agree. Australia $11 just seems, ludicrous, but we can get to that. Northern Hemisphere teams, are they peaking too early? You know, they obviously had a pretty good weekend, got the better of their Southern Hemisphere counterparts, and the Northern Tour on the whole, they probably would be holding their heads up high. Are they peaking too early for 2023, or do you reckon they're sort of travelling all right? We've got France second favourite, $3.75, England $5.50 at third favourite, Ireland out at $13, which is interesting to see. What do you guys reckon about all that?
I don't think they've actually peaked. I think they're on the up, and I think the All Blacks are sort of on towards a low ebb. Although with the squad they have, they shouldn't actually be there. They should actually be on the up as well, but they're not at the moment. So I still think there's more in the tank for especially France. I'm not sure about Ireland. I think there's a bit more in the tank when it comes to England as well. So I don't mind the looks of them. If you have a look at France, as you said, they're $3.75 now, but they did open up at $9. So anyone who got on the $9 will be sitting back very, very happy now, knowing that the actual 2023 World Cup is in their backyard and they're progressing along very, very nicely. The other team I sort of like, don't mind the look of, is South Africa. I know they lost a few, but I think the $6 is value around the South Africans. They sort of have this sort of trend where 2 years in between World Cups, they're sort of playing around a wee bit. They're trying a few things, and I think we'll see them start to move along very, very nicely next season, and they will be at their peak when we get to 2023. So them at $6, they did touch $8 in that outright winner book for the World Cup, but I still think $6 is worth a go. The defending world champs, they'll be back again. They'll be at the top of their game when we get to 2023. So I see no value in the All Blacks at $3.25. And the value's gone out of France at $3.75. But if you got on at $9, you're very, very happy. And I like South Africa at $6. I agree with Fisky. $11 is well unders for the Australians. And Rennie's going to have to be David Copperfield to be able to turn that squad around. He will. He will have to make a superstar appear out of nowhere for the Australians to be competitive in 2023.
So we nibble here and there, Paul. Who, if you had one bet, Fisky, who are you sort of eyeing up?
Yeah, I think Paul summarised it really well. New Zealand are massive unders, actually. The more I think about it, they're barely favourites, but it's almost $4 a pick. Like 4 of them really. South Africa, France, England, and the All Blacks. It's almost $4 the field, $4.50 the field if you throw in Ireland. If I was going to have a bet, I think the $13 Ireland. That's your upside there. I thought they were brilliant in all their matches. Like they absolutely towed Japan up by 50. Absolutely towed Argentina. So it's pretty clear that second tier gap, which the likes of Argentina and Japan at the top of that second tier, they can't even compete with a side like Ireland now. They're just so far ahead, and blew the All Blacks off the park just so confidently and with consummate ease. And I just love their back row, Kalen Doris, and their hooker's good. It's interesting. Carberry's coming on really well. So even if Sexton's not right in 2 years, Carberry's showing that he's got the goods. So, if we're going to have one bet, $13 Ireland. But like I say, there's 5 genuine chances.
Yeah, it should be a brilliant competition.
But in saying all this, Ireland have the absolute canny knack of peaking exactly, doing the opposite of South Africa, peaking the 2 years in between World Cups.
Yeah,
so I'm not getting out. It's only because they're $13 that I'm getting a little bit excited. I'm not declaring
there's quite a bit of excitement about the last World Cup, and then they went and sort of lost to Japan in the pool play, didn't they? And they didn't pull through, but
they do it every time. But if we can wax lyrical about Dupont and Ntamak and Fiku, and rightly so. Like there's just so much talent there, pushing that big pack around. They're just, pulling the strings, scoring points at will out wide. But England are kind of, you got to throw them in now because they got some huge forwards. They just, pull out of trees. But now you got Freddie Stewart and Marcus Smith, some young playmakers at fullback and at 10, and that's a new dimension for me. So that makes me. I'd never get excited about England. Grubs is a word that comes to mind. But if you're an England fan, you should be pretty excited.
Yeah, early days, but what I've seen of Freddie Stewart, I think he's man of the match in both those last 2 tests for England against Australia and South Africa. So, he looks like one to really watch the future. And then, Marcus Smith, it was an easy penalty, but, still he's kind of had very young and shown some really good signs. So it's nice to see. Well, it's not nice to see England playing well, but it's nice to see them playing some positive footy.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic of this international footy, there's been some big news this year. This week, the eligibility rules. So, World Rugby have sort of approved the new rules, which means that I'm sort of not fully on top of what the rules are, but I understand, it's that players.
I can exclusively reveal that the new rules are that if you sit out for 3 seasons, you're allowed to play for another country, and it can go either way. You don't have to go to a big country down to a smaller one. You can go any way you want, as long as you were born in that country or your parents or grandparents were born there. So someone like Tuolangi could play for Samoa, I imagine. But you have to sit out for 3 years, right? Yeah, so it's not realistic. But Charles Piutau can go play for Tonga. As of, I think, January, he's eligible, and that's when it comes in. So 3 years, sit out for 3 years. Then you can pick anyone you want to play for. If it's not residency, you have to have been born there or have a link with a parent or grandparent.
Yeah. It can only be good, it can only be positive for what rugby can, like the amount of players out there playing in Europe, sort of, gone over there for the money and all that, about to come back and you play for your Tongas and your Samoas. It'd be awesome to see. I'm just having a look now. Your Tonga, they've got sort of Israel Folau, George Moala, Vai Fafita, Samoa's Lema Sopoaga, Stephen Luatua, Julian Savia. So there's some really great players that could be, in a couple of years' time, could be sort of making their. I know that Adi Savia's sort of, he's in the past expressed his a passion for playing for Samoa. Obviously, he'd have to sit out for 3 years, but if it did happen that he sort of went overseas in a few years' time and was still around, he might be able to fulfill that. So awesome. And also the Rugby World Cup. It looks like it's going to be in Australia in 2027. You'd be happy about that? 2027.
Yeah, so I'm just organising a a granny flat out the back for Paul and get him over here.
I'm on my way, Fisky.
Get him over here, and I've warned the publicans. It's 6 years away, but I can't wait. I think, and they said it's basically a flick of a pen. It's been approved, and it'll get announced shortly. So, whilst the Wallabies aren't a superpower anymore, I think Australia is one of the best countries for hosting sporting events. They've proven that many, many times over and over with the Olympics, and a big example in 2003 World Cup. So, bring it on. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, should be awesome. Oh, good. Well, what I wanted to hear your thoughts on, guys. Bunnings NPC finals on the weekend. Taranaki and Waikato victorious. We'll start off in Inglewood on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Looked like a beautiful day there. Paul, you liked Taranaki last week, and they pulled through for you?
Yeah, did I tip them out, did I?
Yeah, I think you did. I think you had the 13 plus as your bonus bet, and you had them as your best
did I?
bet,
Gee, that's a nice way to finish the season, isn't it?
Other people on the panel quite liked Otago, but wasn't to be.
I just I thought Taranaki up at home. They played well all season. They're unbeaten.
Unbeaten.
They really, really did play well. I mean, there were a couple of games where it was a close call, but they played premiership teams and knocked them all over. And I just thought they had the base of the squad was as solid as a rock, and they had a few sort of X factor pieces as well, and they were very well coached. You could see it was a very, very good squad, and they thoroughly deserved to win the championship. And to be fair, they thoroughly deserved to be promoted. Now that's not going to happen, unfortunately. But Otago put up a good fight, but Taranaki were just too good in the end in all facets, I thought. Otago took the few chances that they got, but I don't know. Taranaki, for mine, were just too far ahead of the rest of the field.
Yeah, they were. You're not wrong. When they sort of started, I think it was in the third or fourth minute when they scored that try. They're throwing the ball around. I thought this could get ugly for Otago, but kudos to Otago. They got that charge down try, and then they sort of kept in there and had some nice touches. But it was sort of pushed out a bit too far for them in the end. Tasman Waikato. Tasman started favourites, and it was an absolute grind. But Waikato at home, back at FMG Stadium, at Waikato Stadium, they managed to grind out that win. It was a bit of a funny old game. What did you take from that game, Fisky?
Oh, I loved it. I loved the season, actually. I really enjoyed Bunnings NPC, both divisions. And, if ever a home ground showed its value and its worth, it was Saturday night. I thought, the crowd were going absolutely bananas with the bloody cowbells, and they forced actually Tasman to miss quite a simple penalty, which in the end was probably the difference. So, I thought it was a classic tight game in tough conditions. I thought, Waikato really the last 6 weeks of the season you couldn't fault them, and D'Angelo Leilua, the number 10, mate. He's a find. He's come out of Park Rugby in Auckland, and brilliant player. I know he made his test debut this year as well, but goal kicking faultless. I know he missed one, but just generally speaking over the season, couldn't fault him. Hit the lines real hard, back in behind the ruck and off lineouts and whatnot, and just decent ball skills too. So I was really impressed with him. Liam Coombs Fabling, the winger, I thought he's a great find. I didn't have a bad game all season, and he's lightning. He's got all the class in the world. Actually, both centres do as well, Sullivan and Rampling. So, in the end, it was probably just that couple of loose passes from Tasman. I wouldn't say they were the better side, but Waikato was just good enough to take the chances. Good game of footy. I really enjoyed it.
It's two loose passes, wasn't it? And Sullivan scored from both of them. So
he scored from both of them. Shout out to Reece Marshall, come back from Ireland, done really well this year, and I think he's he was meant to be playing for Highlanders. It hasn't quite worked out next year, so he's still on the look for a club. And you just could see the experience showed in the scrum there, probably the last 3 weeks that he played. And, yeah, I thought they finished the season brilliantly. Tasman didn't let themselves down either, though. They were good. It just wasn't to be.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of thought, watching the game, I thought the Tasman sort of, even though it was sort of back and forth, they would look like probably they might take it. But yeah, it was those 2 loose passes, and then Waikato, just the home crowd, and Mitch Hunt will have those cowbells ringing in his ears still, I reckon. Yeah. It was funny the difference going from sort of Aviva Stadium the week before the All Blacks game, where silence the kicker, and then hearing that with the cowbells, it's sort of. Yeah,
I'm totally against all that respect for kickers. Give me a break. It's footy.
Yeah, it's why you have a home field advantage.
Exactly.
Yeah. Otherwise, forget about it. But I thought that Sullivan, he's got a little bit of a touch of Will Jordan about him. For some players, being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
If it happens every now and then it just happens. You're just there when it happens. But I get the feeling that the Sullivan guy, he's actually got that skill to actually be in the right place at the right time. And I'm glad to see. I think he's with the Hurricanes, isn't he? I think he's with the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, that rings a bell.
So there's certainly a spot for him in the Hurricanes with all the centres leaving Hurricanes territory. The only one that was left is Umaga Jensen, I think. So there's definitely a spot there if he puts his hand up next season, and I think he will, because he gives me the sort of feeling that he's the sort of player who is always the right man in the right place at the right time. So
I don't want to put you on the spot, guys, but is Stephen Perifetta picked up by any Super Rugby sides?
Yeah, Blues.
Yeah, Taranaki. I thought he was brilliant. I think he was almost Taranaki's best this year. I know we're going back to the other game, but he's an unheralded player. It's the class act, I think. And you kind of see that when you see Sullivan, you just see that class about him. And I was just thinking of Perifetta as well when Paul was talking. So, yeah, class acts.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's quite nice because I wanted to talk about these Super Rugby squads just really quickly, and I did want to bring up the Blues because they're really shaping to be a beautiful, beautiful team. We've got in the halfbacks, the backline in particular, got Finlay Christie, Sam Knock, inside backs, Bowden Barrett and Stephen Perifetta and Harry Plummer. In the midfield, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Rieko Ioane, and then Mark Talia, Caleb Clark, and Zahn Sullivan and Bryce Heem at the back. So plenty of stuff to be excited about. Were you guys surprised to see Roger in the midfield?
No, I think that's the percentage play early on. I think you're going to see him wing or fullback. There's a lot of kicking and positional play and a few other little intricacies he's good enough to get on top of. You just don't want him doing that straight away. So midfield, truck it up, look for an offload, get to the breakdown. That's going to be Roger for the first 6-8 weeks.
Yeah, it'd be beautiful to see him and Rieko play together. I presume Rieko will still be playing in the centres. Yeah. So, and then, but looking through all the teams, I think, there's plenty to be excited about this Super Rugby. But it's what it will look like, I suppose, with the announcement yesterday that teams won't be able to from overseas won't be able to come in without quarantine for April at the least. Anyone got any word on any alternatives that the New Zealand Rugby and sort of the Moana Pacifica organisers could be thinking about doing?
Well, I think with the even number of teams now with Fiji and Drua and Moana Pacifica, if Fiji are going to be based in Wollongong or wherever it is, surely until Jacinda opens the borders, and we're not a political podcast, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners will agree. She could just open up without this week of isolation. Just get everyone travelling. If it's going to take an extra month or two, just get all the Kiwi teams and Moana Pacifica playing for those rounds, and do the same in Australia. And then by the time you hit round 6 or 7, everyone can swap and travel. So I don't think it's actually going to be a massive drama.
Nah, you'd hope so. I was sort of thinking that along those similar lines, that would hopefully what their thinking would be. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it should be a great
thoughts,
competition.
Rixie? You're a great political answer of questions. Any thoughts on Jacinta's border policy?
We're not a political podcast.
That's
We're a rugby podcast.
Okay, I don't want to get us taken off there.
Yeah. I know there's a few sporting teams and organisations that would have been a bit thrown back by yesterday's announcement, but they'll just have to go on and learn from it, and adjust their plans as they have been for the last two years. All good. Well, that's probably all for me. Either of you got anything you want to add before we sort of close off for the year?
Two things. I'd like to give a tip. There's a great show at the moment. If you're streaming and want to do something, Succession. I don't know if anyone's been watching that. I'm in season 3. It's brilliant. You watch that, Paul?
I'm in season 3 as well.
Yeah, no, it's random, but I was just thinking of it. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think we'll be back in early January for a season preview. I think it sounds like the way to go. Go through the squads. We'll know a bit more about who's travelling where in terms of the Super Rugby competition. But it's been a great year. Paddy's not here, but I'd like to sign off and say thanks, Fisky and Paul. And yeah, I loved it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your input, Fisky. I think the listeners are always very lucky to have your input as opposed to the rest of us.
I should have got on last week. I missed it last week. I was busy, but I loved Ireland at the minus. We all would have been a little bit richer if I was on. But anyway, we'll find something.
Yeah, we will.
I look forward to those previews in Jan, Fisky. Especially, I don't mind lining up a few futures bets before the season kicks off. So really looking forward to that.
Do you have an early Crow Six Nations call for us really quickly, Fisky?
An early Crow, yeah. I'll stick with Ireland. I think a lot of pressure will be building on France. I'll go with Ireland, but I haven't looked at the draw and who's got the home game. But yeah, Ireland.
Nice. I will remember that, listeners. I'll just bring that up really quickly. Ireland to win.
Kind of depends on where they play France, isn't it?
Six Nations will be third favourite, $4. So
yeah, it's pretty toss of a coin, but I'm partial. I'm an Irish fan, just quietly, and I love the way they play footy. So get on.
Brilliant. All good. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Fisky, for being on the podcast and for a great year of chat about rugby chat. And shout out to Patrick if you're out there. Hopefully you're all right, and hopefully you'll be back by January. And thanks to the listeners out there. Hope you've enjoyed the year, and we'll be back next year to break down the Super Rugby seasons and teams and the season to come. Cheers.
Yeah, we'll be back.